Hi everyone! Today I'm going to show you how to make this serene winter forest scene using some watercolor paints. So I am using Daniel Smith brand watercolors, and let's take a look at the colors that you'll need to create this painting. So for the sky, we're going to use the colors along the top, and then for the tree, we are going to use the colors along the bottom. So these are the 10 or 11 colors that you'll need to make this scene. So let's go ahead and get started. So I've taped my Arches cold press watercolor paper to a board, and this is about maybe 5 by 7 inches. And I just added some water all along the panel, and we're going to start adding our color. So I'm going to start with the Cerulean Blue, and I watered it down quite a bit. You can see it in the pan over there on the right. And I'm just going to make these little wiggly shapes in the sky area. And I'm being sure to leave that center open for now. Now I'm taking Cerulean Blue that's a little bit more concentrated, and I'm just darkening up my little squiggles. So the method we're using here is we want to make like a real moody, broody moon sky. So to do that, we're going to add a whole bunch of wiggle shapes, and we're going to start with light colors. And then as we add layers, we're going to use darker colors with smaller wiggles. So the wiggles will get smaller as we go along and darker. This color is Sleeping Beauty Turquoise, and I love this color. This is one of my favorites so far. It is made of ground up Sleeping Beauty turquoise gems that come from the Sleeping Beauty mine in Arizona. So it's a really, really special pigment. Now I'm just marking out the area where we're going to have our snowbanks later on. And I'm using some of the Payne's gray for this. It's very, very watered down here. And this, I'm just making sure that I don't cover up this area with my sky. So I just wanted to sketch it out. Now we're going to start deepening and darkening the sky. And I probably have a little too much paint on my brush at this point, but we'll fix that in a second. And this is the Mayan Dark Blue. This is a lovely, moody, broody blue. That's like the best way that I can describe it. So I'm just going to mop up that color in the corners and try to do better with my water control next time. So again, just leaving the center of that area light, and I'm just adding my little wiggles along the sides, along the edges, and I'm trying to make sure that I don't color over all the colors. I want to give each of the shades a little spot to live on the paper so that it makes its way into the final painting. Now I'm going to start shaping the moon. And to do so, I'm just going to start making a little circular shape here with my paintbrush. And I'm just going to keep going till I get a good shape. But it's okay if it's not perfect here. We're going to have a bunch of chances to fix it. Now I just mopped up some of the water in the center just to reinforce the shape of the moon there. Now I'm going to add a little bit more cerulean blue around the edges of the moon because I just love the glow that this color gives. I love like a light blue halo around my moons. And we're going to add a second layer of those little wiggles in the same method that we did the first time. So I'm going with the Sleeping Beauty, and now we're going to take the Mayan Dark Blue, go around the edges. Probably got a little too much paint. Again, it's pooling a little in the upper right hand corner, but we'll fix that in a second. Going to be a little bolder with my wiggles this time, and I'm going to let some of that dark Mayan blue kind of come towards the center while making sure to maintain my moon and the little glow around the moon. And at this point in the painting, I'm really just working on darkening up the sky and building the layer. So I'm a little impatient, and that is one area I'm going to have to grow with in my watercoloring, because you do need to be patient for this medium. So now I am just kind of mapping out where the horizon line is. So that's why it's so dark on the bottom. Going to add some more turquoise just to brighten up the sky and just build on those layers. And the idea is I want the area around the moon to be pretty light, but then I want it to look like it's a real kind of mysterious background with just lots of mist going on in the background. And you're going to see when it all dries, all those little wiggle shapes will help us to achieve that effect. I'm going to work on the moon again, and now I'm going to fill it in with just some water, and then I'm going to blot that up. And I like how that leaves a nice little outline around the edges. Now I'm going to add some color to the inside of the moon, blot again. And every time I blot, I get a little closer to the final look that I am looking for. And now I'm thinking of maybe adding some little pieces of mist that maybe cover part of the moon as well. Maybe they're little clouds. I'm using my dark Mayan blue for that. Just going to deepen up our sky. And again, this is really an activity that you need a lot of patience for. It's pretty relaxing if you can be patient. I am struggling with that because I like to move very, very fast with the things that I'm doing. But I'm learning to kind of take a step back with this watercolor. So now my moon looks pretty good to me. I'm happy with that effect. I think it's white and bright enough in the middle. So now I'm going to wipe off the edges, and then we're going to just let this dry. And I hit it with a heat tool off camera, and that is the effect. So we have all those like real pretty misty clouds in the background. So all those little wiggle shapes have done their job and really tried to give us a really dimensional, mystical kind of background. And I love how the moon is shining. For the trees, I'm using Perylene Green here. And I have all the colors down in the lower right-hand corner so you can follow along. And I'm just going to start by drawing a line straight up and down the page. I have switched to a smaller paintbrush at this point. So I think this is a 4. Maybe it's a 6. And then you're just going to add these little like squiggly lines in like an upside down triangle shape, sort of, or an upside down V shape. And you want to make sure to leave a lot of white space in between so that we can see the pretty sky. And also that'll help for the tree to take place. Otherwise it might just look like a big blob if you don't have that white space. And the brushes really do the work for you. So I'm using a round brush here with a real pointy tip. And the brush is going to really help you to make those little craggly shapes on either side of the tree. Now this tree I thought needed to be a little bit bigger. So with the magic of watercolor, we are just going to make our little baby tree a big grown-up tree. And I just built that line up closer towards the moon. So it's just coming up a little bit higher. And then we'll just build out the branches on the bottom a little bit wider. And then that's kind of how you make a big tree from a little tree. And then that one looks pretty good. Now I'm going to add another 1 or 2 trees in the background, these little pine trees, and the Perylene Green that we're using for the pine trees is really the perfect color for them, especially for a dark nighttime sky like this. It really stands out and it's beautiful. So we're going to make a little tree there, and then maybe another little tree on the left side, just doing those little craggly shapes. This was probably my favorite part of the whole painting, making these trees, because it's just really, really relaxing. It's really simple to do, and you don't have to think a lot, and you don't have to wait, which I like. Kind of dries pretty quickly. Now we're going to draw a big tree just coming up in front of everything. So this is going to be in our foreground, and I'm taking that Brown Iron Oxide paint, and we are just going to draw in our tree. It's going to curve a little bit to the right around the moon. I don't want to cover up the moon. And then it's up to you how you want to make your tree. So you can make your tree go straight up and down. You can have it hang over a little bit to the right, like I have here. You can have a lot of little branches coming off the sides. You can have a few branches. It's up to you. You could make maybe another tree or two behind it with like real wispy branches. Just, have fun and do whatever feels right for you in the moment. The main thing that you want to do is just leave the face of the moon open. Or if you do have one of the branches come in front of the moon, you just want it maybe one to do that, like this one here. And that will help with the effect too. If you have like one really, really thin branch kind of touch the moon area. So I'm just using my brown oxide here for my first layer. And then for the second layer, I'm going to take some of the neutral tint. And then later I switch to the neutral, to Lunar Black, just to deepen and darken the brown. So I realized that I needed a really dark, like walnut brown for the shadows on this tree. And that's not a color that I have. So I just kind of made it by adding some black to the iron oxide brown that I already have. And I'm going to focus the shadows on the left side of the tree because the moon is, the moonlight is hitting the tree on its right side. So those parts of the tree are going to be lighter, like on the right side. And then towards the end, we're also going to add a whole bunch of snow to the trees, including to this big brown tree in front. Now I'm just working on the snowbanks here. And honestly, here I got a little bit lost. It's sort of funny, but the first time I try to do snowbanks in whatever medium I'm doing, I kind of lose my way. And then I need to refresh myself by like watching something I've done in the past or watching another artist's tutorial. So for this one, I had trouble just seeing what I was doing, like meaning like in my mind, the lines weren't making sense to me. When I look back on this now, it makes more sense and I can actually see the dimension better than when I was working on it. So it's interesting how that happens. But I'm going to show you how I fixed that, at least in my mind, in a little bit. But first, we're going to add some snow to the trees here. And I'm just taking a really, really thin round brush. I think this is a 2. And I'm taking some white gouache, which I prefer white gouache for this kind of white details because it's an opaque white and it's pretty thick. And I'm just going to add that like on top of the little branches. And it's really just a whole bunch of little squiggles, making sure not to cover up all the green. Just trying to make it look kind of natural. And the way that I tried to achieve that was by putting the little white speckles like on top of the branches or at the top of wherever the little green squiggly lines are. And then for this tree on the side, we're going to do the same. For the trees in the background, like the 2 that are in the center that are kind of farther back in the scene, I tried to use a little bit watered down gouache there because that'll give more of a grayish or more of a transparent white color. So it would look the way it would if we were looking at this in real life. They'd look farther away, so less detailed and less colorful. Now we're going to add the snow to the branches of our brown tree here, and just wherever there's a little curve or a little place for some snow to sit, I'm just adding that. This is also going to help with the effect, the highlight effect that we'd get from the moon. So I'm going to show you how to add some highlights along the right side of the tree in a second, just to be the reflection of the light from the moon. So we've got snow and highlights going on this tree. Now we're just working on the snow. Then now we're going to add the highlight. So it's just a thin white strip down the right side of the tree. So it's the tree that's closest to the moon. And then we're just going to rub it into the rest of the paint so it gets a little bit more dull and a little shiny looking. And I'm just going to take some water and just mix it all in. and it gives like a real like kind of ghostly look to the side of the tree. I think it's really, really pretty. Now for the moon, I wanted it to be kind of bright, and I saw another artist on YouTube use this trick where they put some really, really bright clouds in front of the moon by adding some white gouache. They were able to do it. They got a lot of texture when they did it. I didn't. So at this point, I am just trying to blend that white into the background. And in doing so, I kind of covered up one of the tree branches, but it's okay. We'll add it back in a second. And then it kind of dried back, and it gave this really pretty, just white, bright center that I think it would have looked fine with the moon as it was. But this kind of, I just like the brightness that the gouache gives here. Now I'm just adding some snow because, again, this is kind of where I was lost and I wasn't able to see the dimension in the scene on the bottom. So I thought by just adding some little lumps of snow with the gouache, I could fix that. So that's really what I'm doing. I'm just adding little lumps of snow here. If I were to do this again, I probably just would have, I think here where I'm adding the little gray lines there in between the snowbanks, if I would have just put a little darker gray along the top of those gray lines, that would have helped to give it dimension, to make it look like there is a little path there. So next time I do this painting, I will do that. But in any event, I think that it came out okay. I'm pretty pleased with it. And if you ever have a situation like this where you feel like there's a part of your painting that you're not so crazy about, if it is a winter scene, you can just splatter snow all over it like I'm doing now, and it'll make the scene really, really beautiful and magical looking, and it will hide any imperfection that you think there is in your painting. In this case, I think that the snow is perfect. It's just a perfect, bright evening with this real heavy snowfall in this serene forest. So now is the best part, peeling off the painter's tape to reveal that pretty white border. We got a little leakage on the left, but that's okay. And that is our watercolor painting for today, everyone. I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you learned a lot, and I really hope that you give the winter forest watercolor painting a try. Thanks a lot, and I will see you again soon in the next video. Have a great day.